Well, brother, it's like this. These people, through their, Adolf Hitler style propaganda, has made the whole world hate us because those people in Colombia never dealt with us. We're not destabilizing their government, or we aren't taking resources from them. So why you hate us for? It's these folks, and that's what I fight against every single day, my brother. But anyway, I want to thank everyone for joining us on the stream today. And these brothers that you see on the screen have wrote the book, Uwenzi, the Pan-African. Hold on, make sure I call it just right. I don't want to screw your book up, but I put it on the cover. Uwenzi, the Pan-African Factor, a 21st Century View. Now, the brother that was speaking earlier with the eyeglass say he was in Colombia is Dr. Kemet Shockley. And as I explained earlier before you guys joined, he is a professor at Howard University, Educational Leadership. So, Dr. Kemet Shockley, thank you for joining us on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Now, our second brother that we have here is Dr. David Akombo. He's Associate Professor of Music at Jackson State University. So, Dr. Akombo, thank you for joining us on the show today.
Welcome.
So, your book, Uwenzi, a 21st Century View in the Pan-African Factor. What inspired that book?
You said what inspired it?
Yes, sir.
I guess I can start off by talking about the fact that what we really wanted to do was to demonstrate the importance of Pan-African unity. So one of the things that the other author of our book, Baruti Katembo, called Dr. Akombo and I and said to us, look, what are we going to do? We're talking a lot about Pan-Africanism. We keep talking about the need for us to show a certain sense of unity among people of African descent across the globe. Here we have three brothers, one in Washington, D.C., Katembo, who is in Jacksonville, Florida, who's not on here today, and Dr. Akombo, who is in Jackson, Mississippi, all talking about similar kinds of things and coming from different disciplines. I come from education, Akombo is coming from music, and Katembo coming from math. So all three of us coming from different disciplines, but still having that common thing that we really want to work on, and that is the unification of our people and to get us back to practicing a culture that makes sense for us in these kinds of things. So we got to talk and we said, well, let's see if we can put Pan-Africanism to work and actually make it real right here where we are and where we sit. And Akombo originally from the continent of Africa, myself from Indiana, and I'm not totally sure, I can't recall where Katembo was from originally, I believe Jacksonville, Florida. We all said, well, what if we can just make it work among the three of us and try to put together a text that would be useful to people and use ourselves as an example of Pan-African unity, of taking a Pan-African effort to make it work for us just generally. Can we take the Pan-Africanist ideas we have in philosophy and theory and make them real practical among the three of us and put this book together? And we were able to get that done. So it was inspired by trying to create sort of like a real life example of Pan-Africanism at play right now and in the real space, practically.
So, Dr. Akombo, what country did you originate from?
Well, I was born in the country of Kenya, and but I traveled a lot in Africa. I've been to all the East African nations. I've been to South Africa. I've been to West Africa. I haven't been to as many countries as I would like to, simply because of partly the reason we are discussing this topic today, the idea of Pan-Africanism. Africa is still very divided. As a matter of fact, we don't freely move to visit other nations, other countries, but that's a hope that this will change in due course. So yes, so I'm from the eastern part of Africa.
So you say a lot of African people don't move all over the nations.
That's right.
Why do you think that happens?
Okay, well, there are many reasons. We can go back to pre-colonial times, but mostly advanced after the independence. After independence, many African nations still maintained the autonomies based off of the colonial regimes. So the Anglophone Africa still has allegiance to France, and the Anglophone Africa still has allegiance to Britain, and so on and so forth. So the divide is still there. And that's one of the reasons that maybe perhaps after Africa has all been independent, it's important for Africans in Africa and in the diaspora to re-examine the dynamics of those divisions. Why, for example, should they continue to have separate countries when they are the same people? That's a fundamental question they can look at. Two, why should they continue to speak so many different languages and not even have a single language that can unify them? To speak one language from Egypt to South Africa, and from Uganda to Zimbabwe, to Morocco, to Nigeria. It's good to have so many languages, but it's very important for a nation to have a single language that they can utilize to communicate amongst themselves, to promote trade, industry, education, health, and everything else that goes into the development of mankind, particularly in Africa and in the diaspora. So those are some of the reasons why it's important to address these issues right on through all the means, be it, for example, through education or through math, through music. For me, I come from the music side, so I'm talking about promoting African Pan-Africanism ideals through music, because there's so much music across Africa and in the diaspora. There are so many things that they are connected with, particularly in music, be it language, singing in an African language, or playing African rhythms, playing African instruments. That's an aspect of unity of sorts, and it has to be recognized and developed for that purpose.
Yeah, I notice with us, when it comes to music, it's more like a spiritual connection than anything. Is that kind of accurate all over the diaspora?
I would say it's accurate all over the diaspora, because many people in the world do not know how spiritual African people are, and the dynamics of spirituality unify Africans very much so, because they are essentially very spiritual people. Now, spiritual does not mean all of them are Muslims or Judeo-Christians, or whatever, but they have African spiritualism, for example, other religions in Africa that unify them in a spiritual reality that unifies them. So there's a spiritual unity or unification that can be harnessed within the Pan-Africanism, because they're already connected through the spiritual entities.
Yeah, and that's the wonderful thing about us, whether you are in an African nation or you here in the United States of America, it seems like when something happens to one of us, we all literally feel it.
Yes.
And I noticed that other groups of people don't have that like we have. And that's why I asked about the spiritual connection.
Correct.
So, Dr. Kemet, let me ask you a question. And maybe Dr. Akombo can join me on this as well. We talk about Pan-Africanism. You have, the great Marcus Garvey, he wanted us to go back. He was trying until J. Edgar Hoover got in his way. Now, what is the fear that a lot of times we notice in America, they have with us saying, you know what, forget it. We're going to go back, or we're going to do for self. Why do they fear that so much?
No, I think that probably the biggest reason why they fear it is that if we ever get ourselves together, we will be a force to be reckoned with, and we'll be able to take control of our lives and our communities. So I think their fear is based in what they know about our history. What they've found out about us is that we have run the world in our own cultural context and through our own thinking since the first dynasties ever recorded, and perhaps even before. And then they see our creativity, and I think that the creativity, and we talked about music, we talked about language, we just talked about math. The other author of the book is a mathematician, and they've been able to sort of see that if left alone, we can do great things. So when you have a group of people who are really sort of trying to copy the things that you do, and who are trying to suppress you so that they can put their own foot forward. And then they see you making strides such as having your first black president in a country where we started off as slaves. I think that perhaps the fear that they have of us is because of our own ingenuity, our intelligence, and our ability to make something out of nothing. So when you see that, I think that breeds a certain fear in them. What we have to do, though, is to not fall for the trickery that we are some second-class people who are really niggers and who really don't have any real culture and are not connected to anything of meaning. See, we've been falling for that for a long time. And I think the biggest problem I have is the fact that we fall for that. We actually begin to see ourselves through the eyes of our oppressor. So I think what we have to do is to clean up our way of thinking first. Before we can clean up our action, first you got to clean up your thinking. Then you act better, and then you show better. So I think that the reason they fear us is because they're looking at us as their enemy instead of trying to cooperate with us and use the kinds of things that we tried to teach them when they were on the African continent before they started to disperse and go out to places like Europe, and teaching them how to be family. So I think that fear in some ways is a result of them not being able to come around to seeing that there is a universal family human culture that originates from Africa, and they are becoming alien to that. And the alienation that they have from themselves, they now project that onto us as we become alien to our own selves now. So I think that what we have to do is to get back in touch with who we are as African people and not allow them to control us from the position of being in many ways our children.
You're right about that, my brother, because I know that we have to unify, and I keep saying, I believe, not only here in America, but we need to unify worldwide, even with our African brothers and sisters, because they hate us worldwide. Now, you was telling me a story about where you're at right now, about the police and black people. Could you share that story, what you saw over there in Colombia?
It's not something I saw yesterday. We were having a conversation with some of the brothers who are here in Colombia. I'm in South America right now. One of the brothers told us that, we were ears perked up to listen to some of the things that black people here are going through. Black people who were born here. These aren't black people who are visiting. They're born right here in Colombia, telling us stories about being followed by police officers, being harassed when they go into grocery stores, talking about discrimination to try and get jobs. And it was so interesting to sit there and listen to the brother talking, because as he was talking, it sounded like he was in Chicago. Some of us who were sitting around listening to him were saying, "Wow, this happens here." And so what we're not understanding, I don't think, is that this white supremacy is global, and that black oppression is global. It's all over the planet. That's why we really need to begin to think about adopting Pan-Africanist principles into the things that we do and the ways we think. Pan-Africanism is really a call for African unity. It's really a call for black people to begin to see themselves as one group of people and not splintered off into so many different factions. So I think what we have to do really is, just hearing stories like what the brother was telling us, and you see the passion in people's faces when they start talking about the oppression that they're experiencing, again, all around the world. When this brother was talking to us, it was like we were just sitting around the coffee table in Chicago or in DC where I live. It doesn't matter. What I'm saying is that we have to begin to understand we do have a common enemy, a common oppressor, and then we have to understand we have irreconcilable differences with them. And then in that recognition, begin to build a reality for ourselves that makes some sense. And Pan-Africanism is the first step toward doing that. So my thing is, the first thing we have to do is to recognize we're at war, and a war of irreconcilable differences, and that we can no longer be the pawns and playthings of these folks, of course, who are directed and powerful, while we sit around trying to figure out some kind of a way to please them, which will never happen.
You're right, because, I didn't used to think that way myself at one point in time. And then as I started doing these news stories over and over and over and over and over, I'm seeing that these people hate us. And when I see videos like Philando Castile, how you just shooting in the car, the recent video, or you had the sister in Seattle. If you could sit up there and shoot a little pregnant woman twice, okay, in front of children, these people has no moral compass. Like I said, they have a heart of stone and a soul of ice. It's like, I say that's like, to me, they like hybrid of a human. Because I couldn't dare to shoot people like that and kill people. And yet, and that's what I was saying, that we sit up here listening to them. They have no moral compass to assess you, because if they're going to assess you and me, brother, then they got to assess our condition. And our condition came because of them. And they don't want to do that either. So, I mean, that's why I say we need to stop listening to them. Just as much you want to listen to a pathological liar tell you anything, it's the same thing with them. Now, do you feel Pan-Africanism can help unify our community?
Yes, I think that Pan-Africanism is one of the only solutions we actually have. So what we have now, really, I think, is, let's say we're in a state of depression, is what I kind of see this as. We're not able to use our energy and our efforts to, in the ways that we would want to, so that we can build the kind of life and community that we need. We are also practicing another person's culture. We're practicing a foreign and alienating culture. So we're alienated from our own selves through the culture that we practice. And one of the things that I notice as I spend time here in Columbia is watching people who are more in tune with their own culture. And I see remnants of things that we used to have back when I was a kid, even, that have sort of gone away as we have tried to become so sophisticated in our way of being with each other, as opposed to holding on to the African culture and having that sense of continuity between ourselves and our brothers and sisters. I see now what we're doing is we're trying to gain money. We're trying to be Western. We're trying to have lighter skin. As I heard someone say one time, barbecue press and grease our hair, change things about ourselves that are natural for ourselves. We're trying to, in many ways, be somebody else. The only solution to that, I think, is to keep our children from falling victim to all this by offering an African-centered education, which is what I talk about in the book, and to become be Pan-Africanist in our thinking, following behind what Malcolm X, W.E.B. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, Julius Nyerere, and the people that are part of the Pan-Africanist movement have been trying to get us to do for many, many years. So I think that it's the only solution is to be yourself. We have to re-Africanize and reacculturate ourselves to that which is familiar to us. Again, as I walk around a village here and I think about village life, and I have been in Africa and been in villages there, and I think about the ways that the people there interact with each other, and the community, sense of community among the people in these places is who we are naturally. But we've become convinced that we are the nigger that they said we are. We're not that, we're African people, and we have to clean our act up. And the only way to clean it up, we can't clean our act up and go be Arab. We can't clean our act up and go be Chinese. You don't see the Chinese trying to be English. We're African people, so what we have to do is be African. So Pan-Africanism and African acculturation is the only solution for the African person.
Now, Dr. Combo, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Why is it that after all these years that people in African nations have not said to the people here in America that are black, say, you know what, brothers and sisters, we want to try to provide a way for you to come back home? Why does that not happen?
Well, first of all, let me say a few words about how me as an African and other Africans in Africa feel about the Black people in the diaspora. We feel terribly sorry for what history made happen those many years ago. And we know we are connected, but we had little to do because at the time we are not responsible for what happened. But the history has it that some of us are responsible for some of the actions that happened. So we were not unified at the very first place. Some of our own brothers and uncles and great-grandfathers may have participated in slavery of sorts. but that's historical. Right now, what we need to do is to have some kind of a recognition of what has happened with our brothers and sisters in the diaspora. And as Professor Kemp has eloquently stated, that it's important for that unification to happen. And Africans in Africa should open doors for Black people in the diaspora to be able to freely return home as they will. And if they want to open businesses in Africa, so be it. If they want to buy property in Africa, so be it. If they want to participate in African global and millennial development, so be it. But they should not be afraid to return home because somebody has a home at some place. And it's important to remember where you came from and help the people you left behind. And those you left behind have a responsibility to accept those who left them either by will or unwillingly. So it's still a struggle between Africans in Africa and Africans in the diaspora to accept that reality and accept one another and support each other. There are very many successful Black people outside the continent of Africa, yet we have millions of Africans starving to death or just barely surviving. There is so much turmoil in Africa that many Africans in the diaspora can be part of in solving those solutions, those problems. They don't have to wait for the government of China to come and help them, the government of England, Germany and Sweden and France, Canada, and all the developed nations to go back to help the Black people in Africa. Africans can be helped, and they can, well, first of all, they can help themselves. That's what we talk about in our book. In music, for example, there's so much music in Africa, many musicians, talented. They can harness their music and devise it in such a way that it can be a global market. They can help themselves grow out of poverty by selling their products, the arts, the music, and the dance, and what have you in the performance arts. We can do that. Now, talk about language. We can develop a language that can help Africans in Africa to speak a language that will unify them so they can understand one another, because when they don't understand each other, there is a collision. There's a collision, and we have ethnic divisions and ethnic animosities. And one of the reasons for that is very simple things such as education. If education can expand as common lingua franca, where every African can speak that language and promote that through education, then they can start to communicate. And maybe that language, maybe it should be Yoruba or Swahili or Zulu. It doesn't even matter. Then have Africans in the diaspora learn some African lingua franca, a language that they can go to any country in Africa and be able to communicate with the Africans there. Besides the languages of trade, such as French and English, and Portuguese in South America. Those are good languages, but I think they need to harness a language that would be easily learned by Africans in Africa, and also a language that could be learned by Africans in the diaspora. And I think in the book, we also talked about how music can support these kinds of educational endeavors to promote a language, common songs that can promote a language of sorts and help people learn that African language. So unity is the idea. Unify through the culture and understanding, and be proud, and develop artifacts, develop trade, develop interterritorial trade within Africa and outside too. Now, because there's already so much potential in terms of resources in Africa. Africa is not a very poor continent as it's been portrayed. There are resources, they just need to be harnessed. We've talked in our book how some of these resources can be harnessed. We've talked about short-sightedness of African leaders, who Dr. Shockley has eloquently talked about. That short-sightedness, we have, I just mentioned about tribalism. We have talked about poverty. we've talked about inept conflict resolutions and strategies in Africa. Now, for me, coming from the musical standpoint, I know music can go a long way to break these barriers, to unify people through a common art and understanding and loving, and extend this not just within African context, but also outside to the Americas, to Europe, even to China, Japan, and other parts of the world. So that's what we are trying to sell, to advocate in our book.
No, this is my personal opinion, Dr. Combo. I feel the only way Africa is going to be free unless they unite and kick out the Chinese and kick out the great British or Europeans. You kick them out. Everybody, they need to be kicked out, because Africa has all the resources of the world. You wouldn't have a cell phone in America or a laptop. It wouldn't be for the coltan that comes from Africa. Africa has diamonds. Africa has gold. They have everything. So we don't really need anything from anybody. We just have to come together as people in the diaspora and say, get these people out, because they just parasites in African nations. They if you don't have the alphabet boys over here in America causing coups and taking out leaders, and the French, they depend on Africa to support their economy, Great Britain as well. I mean, all these people to leeching off of Africa, and I just can't wait. Hopefully we can see the day that Africans will just say, you know what, the hell with this. We getting together, we kicking everybody out, even the Arabs too, because I watched a video of Tunisia and how the Arabs, are treating black people over there like they are 1950s America. I say, what the hell is this? I say, if you don't like Africans, you don't need to be there. Or maybe I'm wrong, Dr. Kimmett.
Well, I mean, no, I don't think that you're wrong. I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, so in terms of the kinds of things we need to be focused on, yeah, it's true that every time you turn around, there's a group that wants to come in and have their way with the continent, and there are different sectors of getting ourselves together that we can go into. For example, one of the things I heard Baba Kombo talking about is the idea of language. Are we going to have a common language among people of African descent? That's a difficult conversation, but it's one we need to start having. There are groups of people who are pushing for Swahili as that common language. So I guess in response to your question, what I'm saying is that there's a lot of work that has to be done to get rid of foreign influence, but also we have to be prepared on our end of it. What are we going to do about maintaining our tradition of arts and crafts? What are we going to do about maintaining our the foods that we used to that we cook, and how is that going to be a part of the culture that we have? Dr. Akombo's talking about music. What about things like sports and technology? There's enough of a conversation that we need to start having among ourselves about what we're going to do, in addition to kicking other people out. But the problem is we're not yet being very serious about the sort of psychological transformation that we have to go through in order to get ourselves to the point where we're, I guess you could say, just mentally prepared to stop playing games with the foolishness and the trinkets that the Europeans are throwing our way. So we had the trinkets come our way when they came to Africa and they kidnapped us. But now we have distractions and trinkets like Donald Trump and other kinds of sort of play stuff. But it's easier for us to talk about the silliness that Europeans are putting on us than it is for us to get serious and say, okay, what contribution am I going to make? How am I going to direct the work that I do every day, the school that I attend every day, the life that I live every day? How am I going to redirect that toward building African energy for our people on this planet? That's much harder to do. It's much harder to say, what am I going to do in this re-Africanization process? That's difficult work, and it means that we have to begin to think of our families and our communities as places where we're going to reignite the African spirit. So that means adopting an African culture as a reference point for us to live from. For example, the reference point that I use to sort of help me organize my life is a Khan culture. Well, Akan consists of so many different things. One, for example, is the paradigm of Onyami and Sheshe, which I learned a lot through my mentor, Kwame Ajakoto. So in learning about Akan culture, I've learned about how the Akan think of taking care of the elders in the community, how they think about taking care of children in their community, how they think about the ancestors. So those three things alone are years and years worth of study, but they're things that have been blotted out from our history. So while we're distracted from our own selves and from what we need to be doing by things, European trinkets and European distractions, I just named three things that are going to take me almost an entire lifetime to come back to some understanding of what our ancestors had in store for us, so that we can begin to restore the things that they had for us to do. But instead of so that takes a lot of personal work, which is a little bit less sexy, I think, I would say, than say marching down the street against white people. Which I'm not saying that's not always something we want to do, but what I'm saying is that we've got to get serious about taking our role and how we should be using our time. We've got to start taking it a lot more seriously than we have been. So in some ways, I think that addresses your question. What I'm saying is that yes, we got to kick the Chinese out, we got to kick the Europeans out, and I think that some of those efforts, Robert Mugabe and some of those folks are important. But I think that what may be even more important is kicking them out of our mind. Because even if you kick them off the continent, the way that we're thinking and the way that we're interacting with each other, they'll still be there because they'll be here.
Correct. And with that said, I want to thank both of you for joining us on the show today. Where can people buy the book?
I'm not sure if Dr. Okombo is still there or not, but
yeah, he's still there.
On Amazon.
Yes, the book is on Amazon.
Okay, I just didn't see him.
Yes, Amazon.
It's on Amazon.
Okay, so you can find the book on Amazon.com.
And
I'll put the picture up is the thumbnail we're using, but to the left is what the book looks like, ladies and gentlemen. And you can pick it up at Amazon.com, read it, and leave them a note. Now, if any of you guys are have any social media that maybe people can contact you with?
No, we haven't. They can also get a book at Author House, the publisher of the book, authorhouse.com.
Okay, Author House. Yes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I definitely thank you, brothers, for joining us on the show today. And people, check out the book on Amazon.com. And, have a good time out there in Columbia. And the other brother, that's the teacher of music, keep teaching the students about music. They need to know that.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, brothers and sisters. Well, that was those brothers, Dr. Okombo and Dr. Kemet. Make sure I clear this out. Now we're just waiting for our second person that was supposed to come in and do an interview with us today. You gonna buy that book? Good. Buy the book. Buy the book. Let me now watch. Y'all gonna catch me. Y'all gonna catch me doing something I normally don't even be doing. Is being on the phone. I gotta make a call real quick. Waiting for the other guy to get on. But I'm watching. I'm watching y'all. What y'all talking about real quick? Hey, I had two of them to do today. So that was like the first. All right, so I'm back. They had to check on the little one. You know how that goes. So if you want stories, you report them on this topic. Oh, Sister Victoria had brought up a good comment. Yes, I agree with you 100%. If you want certain stories to be done, obviously those stories are very passionate to you as a person. So if you're talking to me on YouTube, you have the same ability as me. Upload the stories, talk about them. I can't do everything. I strategically do videos based on time. I do them strategically based on if I have an opinion about it, because some things I don't have an opinion that I can share. So I don't do everything. I just want to let people know that. And the thing is, one thing I've learned by doing this, you can't please everybody. No matter what you try to do, you just won't please everybody. You can do 100 stories, you can do 2. Somebody gonna have a complaint about it. They can tell you do this and you do it, it's still gonna be a complaint. So it's just better just to do what you think you could do to please the people that you think you could please at the time. Now, these live streams that I'm doing here lately with the interviews, I think those are better because, sometimes some of you at this time of day still at work. You got stuff going on, right? You have nothing else to do, possibly, because there's times that, a lot of us have, 9 to 5s. So if we could bring an interview middle of the day, why not? Give you something to watch. And also it helps us with watch time, because watch time is a very important thing. We slowly seeing the ads come back here on our YouTube channel, just slowly, and we still dealing with demonetization as well. That's still happening. If you see an ad that pops up on this, something you could do. Some of you who haven't joined us on Patreon or PayPal, which we definitely appreciate, everybody has done that. If you see one of them pop up and they say skip, don't skip it. Let it play all the way through. Because we will not get no revenue from that ad if you hit skip. But if you let it play all the way through, in which I do this to every person that I like, that I watch, I let it play if I'm on my other account, because I got a YouTube Red subscription. And with YouTube Red, they do share some of that with the content creator. But if you don't want to do the YouTube Red thing, then just let it play, let it start. That's kind of how I do it. So, like I said, let's say you can't please everyone. I made a comment, left Black Power head to some chick got mad because I didn't include some white. Yeah. Some of us are screwed up. Sister Victoria, a lot of us are screwed up. Trust me, I make statements to charge them up. Personally, I do that all the time. I make statements to get reactions, but even though it's how I feel at the time, because if I don't make certain statements, you're not going to think. You're not. So when I make a statement, hey, they hate us, then I'm going to make you think either you're going to respond to me in emotion and say, no, that's not true. Then we can have a back and forth and say, okay, prove to me that that's not true based upon actions. Because like I said, if it's a one-off thing, then I can say, okay, that's a one-off thing. If it happens twice, and say, well, but if it's a pattern, if it's a standard operating procedure, then that tells me that no, you don't like us like that. And I'm basing it on how, look, you watch how these people act on Facebook when they have these police shootings or whatever happens to black people. They showing their face and everything, and they going in about black people. Blacks are this, blacks are that. Black. But I don't hear them talking about crystal meth. I don't hear them talking about heroin. I don't hear them talking about fentanyl. I don't hear them talking about none of that. The stuff they should be talking about, they don't. They worry about us 24/7, what we got going on. And I thought about that one time and said, why just us? You never hear them mentioning other groups, just black people. Really, if you want to be honest, the group they should be complaining about the most and having the most privilege outside of them would be Asians. Asians make more money than them. Asians have a better united community than them. Asians don't commit the crime they commit. Asians get higher education than they get. You would think they would be more jealous of Asians and worrying about Asians taking them over in the United States based upon the numbers. Asians are the lowest on food stamps and welfare. Asians are the lowest in divorce. Asians' numbers are extremely low to a lot of things. And they don't worry about them. They actually want to marry them. But black people who's just broken and who's been suffering at the hands of their terrorism for hundreds of years, they still worry about black people. Like I say, you know something's wrong. Yeah, critical thinking. Yeah. A lot of people don't have critical thinking at all. You say Asians got their own country, plus they got millions of people over here, and they practice group economics very well. I don't get mad at them because of it. But the only thing I look at when I see that is everybody slid in off of the deaths of black people, because all these other groups who's benefiting, you have this guy. Okay, he said he's ready. Oh, let me get to my other guy here. All these other groups is benefiting in this country benefited off of the backs of us. There we go. Let's see, participants. You gotta think about it. After the civil rights movement, everybody got, even people got their white card. Italians wasn't liked before the civil rights movement. Irish wasn't liked. Caucasian Jews wasn't liked. But after the civil rights movement, they got the honorary white card. And then they said all of them said F black people for the most part. We the reason why they got their white card. Asians were treated like crap. We done all the work for everybody else, but then when it's time for us, they say, man, F y'all. That's why a lot of black people say that I ain't helping nobody else. 'Cause look what they did to us in the past. And people don't understand the methods of my madness, and I understand everything y'all saying. I study history and read history all the time. But it's the reason why I say certain things, the reason why I report certain things, because I'm looking at the bigger picture than just what's in the front of us at the time period. Now, I sent this guy. Is he going to respond or what? Let me text the homeboy here. Hold on. Yeah, and now the brother that I'm about to bring on here with the filmmaker Chris Everett from director Wilmington on Fire, it goes right back to we build stuff on our own and then they come to destroy it. And this brother has a movie, and that's why I wanted to talk to him today, so you guys could. Oh yeah, I've heard Tariq saying that, and in a lot of instances that's true. I do agree with that, but what I do, I'm in a different sphere than what Tariq is talking about. I'm waging a propaganda war here. So waging propaganda war with these folks, I have to be extremely strategic on why I'm doing what I'm doing, because it's about the bigger picture at the end of the day. And like I said, I don't fully say how my methods work, because I'm not going to do that, because the Caucasians are listening right now. But I'm waging a propaganda war, and it's not a lot of black people waging that. We are making some dents in the armor. Don't get me wrong. And this is why they want for us to be quiet. This is why they don't want us to have our own platforms, because they don't want anybody getting to the minds and hearts of not only black people, but each two people in general. Because remember, the Black Panthers wasn't a problem when it was in the black community. But the Black Panthers became a problem when all these Caucasians wanted to be like the Black Panthers. When they started inviting them to speak at their colleges, when these Caucasian celebrities started inviting them to speak at their homes and trying to have the Caucasian be like them, right? Then all of a sudden, that's when J. Edgar Hoover had a problem with the Panthers. So it's always like that. Okay, there we go. That's our guy. Right there. All right, so we'll get our guy up on the here. Let's go get our next interview set up, ladies and gentlemen. We have two in one day. How about that? waiting for him to pick up. All right, Mr. Chris Everett, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, I don't see you on camera just yet.
Hold on 1 second. Let's see here.
We live. We were telling the people we were waiting to get in contact with you.
All right. Can you see me?
All right. Yes, sir, my brother. I see you. It's kind of dark, but
Hold on, let me get some light here. I'm getting some light.
That way if I put you on the screen with everybody, and
All right.
we want people to know about your movie.
All right.
And it's about history, and it's very, very important.
Yes,
So,
sir.
yeah,
This better?
You good? You good right there, brother. So
All
this,
right,
this is
all
what
right.
I'm gonna do here. You're not gonna see me on the screen because I'm in another screen, but you'll hear me, right? You can hear me very well.
I can hear you.
Okay, I'm gonna disappear here.
All right.
This is what I'm gonna do.
All right.
Let me see here. There we go. So we're gonna get our brother up on the screen, ladies and gentlemen. Just give me
All
a
right.
second. That we already live. We had interviewed two other people from a book named Uwenzi.
Yeah.
And so you're gonna be on. We're putting you on the screen now.
All right.
All right. So how long ago did your book come out, brother?
Oh, you talking about
your
the
movie?
documentary?
Yeah, your documentary.
It's been out on DVD since November of last year, but I actually started doing screenings and film festivals and stuff like that since November 2015. And then November 2016, we actually released the film on DVD and digital download.
Okay. I'm gonna have to ask you. I have to ask you about the film itself.
Right.
You know, because sometimes some people they have certain screenings that you can do. Let's say even maybe publicly, you know, as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll talk about that. But
All right.
ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Chris Everett, and he is the filmmaker of the movie. And we put this up on the screen, Wilmington on Fire. Now, we definitely need to talk to him about this. I love history. A lot of you love history as well. So, brother, what inspired you to make Wilmington on Fire?
Well, what inspired me to do Wilmington on Fire? I'm a North Carolina native, and it deals with North Carolina history. But just growing up in North Carolina, you know, I never heard about this history at all. And it wasn't until I actually moved to Atlanta, Georgia. I went down to Atlanta to kind of pursue like a film career, to try to dibble and dabble in a few productions that were going on down there at that time. You know, Tyler Perry was really doing his thing back, you know, I say about 2007, whatever. So I wanted to go down and just try to get my feet wet. And when I lived down there, say about 2008, they did like a special about John Singleton's Rosewood, the film he did on the Rosewood Massacre. Mm-hmm. And then they also talked about race massacres that had happened around the country. You know, they mentioned Black Wall Street in Tulsa and East St. Louis riots. And then they also mentioned Wilmington. And I grew up about an hour and a half from Wilmington. I'm from a small town in North Carolina called Laurinburg. And I was like, wow, I'd never heard about this before. So that kind of sparked my interest. And then I just started researching. And I, you know, got a couple of books and also saw that no one actually did an in-depth full documentary about this event. So I looked at it right there. I said, you know what? I'm going to do this film. You know, I looked at it as a challenge. And so I put together all my resources and pulled people together, and we made the film happen.
So could you tell people about Wilmington itself? Yeah. How were we in that particular community that you did the movie about?
Well, Wilmington back in the 1890s, you know, people are familiar with Wilmington today. You know, it's a port city, you know, great beaches, nice riverfront area. And the film industry was real big here from like the 90s to the 2000s. You know, everything is kind of shipped to Georgia now because, you know, we got rid of the different film incentive, you know, programs that we had here. But Wilmington had like, it's like the #3 largest studio on the East Coast is in Wilmington. Screen Gem Studios is here. So a lot of people that know about Wilmington now know about Wilmington for that type of stuff. You know, a lot of TV shows have been filmed here, you know, Dawson's Creek and a whole bunch of big movies over the years. But Wilmington in the 1890s was North Carolina's largest city. It wasn't Charlotte, it wasn't Raleigh, North Carolina. Wilmington was the place to be, and especially for African Americans. It was a real progressive city back in the 1890s, where you had a lot of African Americans involved in the political arena. You had a lot of black aldermen, you had black police officers, black firemen, you had a lot of black business owners as well. You had a lot of wealthy black African Americans in Wilmington back then. And, we kind of document that whole thing throughout the film as well. But that all changed on November 10th, 1898, when the Wilmington Massacre happened. And it totally transformed the city forever.
So the Wilmington Massacre, for those who have never heard about it, could you describe what happened and what led up to that?
Yeah. Well, the Wilmington Massacre is pretty much considered the only coup d'etat to ever happen in America and be successful. And a coup d'etat is an actual overthrow of a government. And that's what they actually did in Wilmington. And that's what makes the Wilmington story significant, because you never really saw anything like that happen, where, in different massacres, they killed a lot of African Americans, and, African Americans left, or, their property was stolen. Well, you had that and more happen in Wilmington. They actually overthrew the government as well, and then instituted Jim Crow, not only in Wilmington, but throughout the whole state. It really was a statewide coup d'etat, because they took control of not only North Carolina's largest city at the time, Wilmington, but the whole state of North Carolina. And a lot of this goes back to the Civil War, because when you look at it, the people behind the 1898 massacre, a lot of them were former Confederate soldiers, and that's real key. And a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the racial terrorism after the end of slavery came from these former Confederates. They weren't even really supposed to be allowed to be involved in politics anyway. But, the United States was very lenient and let them still hold public office and do certain things. And we saw what happened as a result of that. You had the coup d'etat that happened in Wilmington.
So how many black people lost their lives with that event?
Well, there's all type of numbers. If you look at the newspapers back then when it happened, you can't really trust those newspapers, because in research, those people that were running the newspapers, they were actually involved in the massacre. They were part of the propaganda campaign. So a lot of the white supremacy newspapers back then, some of them said, well, it was only 2 people shot. And then a lot of newspapers said it was black people that did it, and said there was black people, rose up, they started it. So we had to, be good white citizens and gun them down, and only like 2 or 5 people were hurt or killed, and, peace restored. So you had a lot of that going down. But over the years, people started really researching the truth. And you find out, man, it was, hundreds of people that were killed, but also thousands left the city. And you had a big banishment campaign where a lot of prominent African Americans were told never to return. And if you come back, we're going to kill you. Because back then, Wilmington was a slight majority African American populated city. It was slight majority African American. But when you look at the records from like after the 1898 massacre to like 1901, the black population was like cut in half. So you had a lot of people that just left the city in general, because those opportunities to a good education, starting a business, finding a good job, and being able to be a productive citizen and raise your family, that wasn't there anymore for African Americans. So a lot of African Americans just left the city. And like I said, it was a majority black populated city back then. You look at Wilmington today, it's 75% white, about 19% black.
So ladies and gentlemen, you hear what he just said. Wilmington was a predominantly black city. Now it's a white city, right?
Yeah.
And it was all done at these radical Caucasian terrorists.
Yes.
This is who they are. This is always how they have been.
Yeah.
And you can't tell me, brother Will, that's the past and they're different today. They're gunning down pregnant women.
Exactly. And
how's that different?
Exactly. It's the exact same thing. And especially the propaganda campaigns. I think that's when a lot of people watch this film. They really, really pay attention to the propaganda part that we talk about in the film. And they say, wow, this is the exact same thing that's going on now. And they did this on purpose back then during the massacre. They had it was like a year-long propaganda campaign before they actually did the 1898 massacre, because they wanted to condition the people for what was going to come. They wanted to condition, so-called liberal whites, so when they did this, liberal whites wouldn't really want to get involved, because they'll say, hey, these black people, they need to be out of here anyway. And then they also had our people, blaming ourselves. Like, you had a lot of African Americans that blamed black people in Wilmington for getting slaughtered. And I just never understood that. You know what I'm saying?
The coons have always been around, brother, since slavery. The coons have been around.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. When you look at the past, you can see a lot of this stuff is going on in the present, and I guess the old saying is right. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Correct. So I'm glad you mentioned the media propaganda, because, one thing, crazy as Trump is, Trump says something I agree with, and I'll probably take to my grave. Trump said the media is the enemy of the people. Yeah. And you doing this movie, I'm pretty sure you see how they've been the enemy to us from day one.
Oh, yeah, man. Like, we also talk about it in the film. And if anybody researches the 1898 massacre, this name always comes up. The name of Alex Manley. And Alex Manley, he was of mixed race. He could actually pass for white, but he always lived his life as a black man. He married him a sister and everything. And he started a newspaper called the Wilmington Daily Record. And we actually have his grandson in the film talking about, his grandfather and the history and his tie-in with the massacre. But he had, at one time back in the 1890s, man, he was one of the very few black men who actually owned a daily newspaper, and it was thriving in Wilmington. And they put out a propaganda campaign on him because he pretty much issued a response article when this one lady, she was a white supremacist, Rebecca Felton, out of Georgia. And she was going around doing these white supremacy speeches, not only her, but a whole bunch of people going all through the South, pretty much telling white men to stand up, to protect their women. These African-American men are free from slavery, and they're going around raping white women, and we need you good white men to protect us. So Alex Manley, he wrote a response article to that and published it in his paper, and pretty much told her that, it's not us that are raping, white women. You guys are coming at us and being sexual with us, but when you get busted, that's when you want to call rape. And he was saying that the white man is raping our women, but no one wants to talk about that. And so the white supremacists in North Carolina and in Wilmington saw that article, and they used that as an opportunity. And they spread the article all over North Carolina, and also other parts of the country saw that article as well. And then right after that, he became a target. And, he had to walk around with bodyguards, everything. He had to move his newspaper press from the downtown area, the whole nine. So the target was on his back, man. He was actually standing up for African Americans, but they used that and put it in the paper, man. And that really is what kickstarted that whole white supremacy propaganda machine that led up to the 1898 massacre.
Now, notice that you said that, and it's just so funny. I'm laughing at it because you said they fooling with black men, and then they get caught and they say it's rape.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You just had that same thing happen with that DeMario Jackson and that Corian Olympios.
Yep.
Same situation.
Same thing.
She was caught. I'm the victim. I'm this, I'm that. Then they got a tape on you. It didn't happen. Yep. But still, and that's why me personally, I tell brothers, look, they got black women out there, and if you don't want to fool black women, they got other races of women that has color. Yeah. At least get them. Leave Becky alone.
You're right, man. You're right.
How many times they gonna put you on a tree?
You're right, man. See, that's what I'm saying, man. And see, when Alex Manley spoke about that, and he also brought that other aspect of saying that, the one that's doing the real raping are white men on black women. And see, he was a product of that. Like I said, he was of mixed race. His parents were slaves, and his slave master was his actual father. His mom was raped. You see what I'm saying? So this was like a personal, I think, issue for him to really, speak the truth, saying that, no, it's white men who are actually the real rapists on our women. You know what I'm saying? So he pretty much was saying, you leave our women alone, we'll leave yours alone. How about that? And so, a lot of African Americans actually blamed him. They pretty much said that, well, he shouldn't have wrote that story. He's the reason. But the thing is, they were going to do the 1898 massacre anyway. When you look at the old records, they were just waiting on something, like that. If it wasn't him, it would have been another excuse they would have found to do it. But Alex Manley went to his grave, man, actually blaming himself. He actually thought that he was the reason why this happened, and he just never got involved in the editorial business ever again.
And that's sad that he allowed these cavemen to come out and just convince him that he did wrong. When it not only there, but you have 60 plus black towns. They have done this to.
Exactly.
Now you talking about Wilmington, the community itself, the homes, the businesses, the schools. All this was built by the hands of black people, correct?
Yes. If any of your listeners and viewers out there are familiar with Wilmington, we have like it's a historic district here where you got the nice little riverfront. It reminds you of Savannah or Charleston or something like that. Nice little riverfront, and you got a little historic district with like the old houses, from the 1800s. African Americans lived in a lot of those old houses. Some of the historical markers are on the houses. Either they lived there or a lot of them built them, because we had a lot of prominent African American builders, like the Howe family. I think the Howe family back then were like a black, building company. They built a lot of houses and buildings and stuff like that. And man, they were really, really wealthy. And I think we had about 2 or 3 others, African American builders that built a lot of the homes here and buildings. So the schools we had here, the businesses, all those things just kind of start going away after the 1898 massacre. Like I said, they ran a lot of people out, and the ones who stayed pretty much had to comply to white supremacy. And we used to have a lot of those black businesses in the downtown district, before the 1898 massacre. But after the massacre happens, it goes down to about, I think, 1 or 2 black-owned businesses in the downtown area. They kind of spread out and just kind of segregate themselves. But it was like more small businesses. All our major enterprises pretty much were gone and just left. We still had a few, barbershops and, little fruit stands and stuff like that. But the economic power that black people had in Wilmington before the massacre was gone after 1898.
Yeah, and this is why we are the condition that we're in today. When you're constantly building, and you constantly, working hard, and doing for self, and then you have these radical Caucasian terrorists come in and destroy everything that you work for, and then these same people say, "Why don't you do stuff for yourself? Look at Asians; they do it, but you didn't go in there and destroy Asian stuff, did you?"
Exactly. And then a lot of people don't realize, once they did this massacre, they instituted Jim Crow all over North Carolina. So when they would do these things to us, they actually enforce the hand on us, the foot on our neck with the law, because, Jim Crow really didn't end in 1968, 1970, give or take. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like, you do this stuff, destroy our communities, destroy our wealth, and then you set in these series of laws that kind of hinder us from actually gaining wealth. And then, that's not that long ago. Then they expect, you guys are making excuses and this. I'm like, you have to look at history to see why we're in the certain conditions, we're in.
So, brother, you said, this is definitely very interesting about history, and I want people to purchase your movie. Where can people purchase your movie at?
They can go online, WilmingtonOnFire.com. WilmingtonOnFire.com. It's pretty much the name of the film. WilmingtonOnFire.com. They can go on there, buy the DVD directly from me, or they can get the digital download on there as well. But everything is on there, WilmingtonOnFire.com.
So let me ask you a question. What do you have any way that people could possibly rebroadcast it, or is there any kind of special license that you could purchase to do that?
Yes. They can just contact me on WilmingtonOnFire.com. We have a contact button on there, and you can just shoot send me a message on there, or send me an email. Let me know what you want to do, and we'll work something out. People hit me up all the time for different licensing and things like that. People want to do their own screenings, or I know a lot of people are doing house parties now. A few people, like in different cities, they're doing, they're getting the film. They're doing like little house parties. They're getting a group of their friends together, and I say, hey, if you guys got Skype or FaceTime after you watch the movie, just hit me up, and I'll do like a little 20, 30-minute Q&A with you, on Skype. So there's different ways, we can set up things, but people can just go to WilmingtonOnFire.com and just hit me up, and we'll take it from there.
All right. Well, Brother Chris, thank you for taking the time to educate the people on what happened in Wilmington. And guys, please go to WilmingtonOnFire.com. Get you a digital download, buy you a DVD, and you say it's also on Amazon as well?
It'll be on Amazon starting next month, but everything right now is WilmingtonOnFire.com.
Okay, well, if you want it right now, WilmingtonOnFire.com. If you're an Amazon Prime member or whatever, maybe next month or so you can check it on Prime. Yeah. So, Brother Chris, thank you for taking the time, educating us about your movie. Because a lot of people didn't know anything about this. One thing that you have proved that these people have never changed their stripes. They're still the same to this day. Yeah. And history just proves itself.
You're right. And like I said, thank you again for having me on. Like I said, I'm a fan of the show, man. So, it's an honor and a privilege, to chop it up with you today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, brother, like I said, it was just an honor just to hear the information. Like I said, I'm an avid learner. So, hey, you taught me a lot today as well. So, brother, keep in touch. Let me know if you need anything. And
Definitely.
Like I say, we'll talk another time.
Thank you. Will do.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that brother came in and brought in the knowledge. And that's what we love to hear, the knowledge. Because we need to definitely know about our history. We need to know about what happened to us, why we in the condition that we're in. See, in school, they didn't teach you about the Wilmington race riot, did they? Notice how they pulled the same stuff they did with that Bachelor in Paradise stuff to try to give excuse to hurt and harm our people. Notice he said in Wilmington how black people build everything for themselves. They didn't have a welfare. They didn't have a food stamp. They did it on their own. And those radical Caucasian terrorists went in there and destroyed everything. They're still doing the same thing to this day. See, teaching history and yet you're still doing the same thing to this day shows that you literally have a natural hatred for the black man and black woman. And notice how they tried to use that Caucasian female to stir stuff up as well. He said that when the brother wrote back, his response, his rebuttal is that, wait a minute, y'all fooling with black men. You get caught and you're saying it's rape. This is why black mothers, black grandmothers have always said, son, leave him alone. I was told that, son, don't do that. It get you in trouble. And I've known some black dudes have gotten in trouble. That's why when people be out there lying on me, saying he's with a white woman, he's married to a white woman. I've never dated a white woman or been in any kind of relationship with a white woman day in my life. I don't know what you're talking about. I tell people straight up, all kind of women I've ever dealt with in my lifetime has been black women and Latinas. That's the only kind of women I've ever dealt with. I haven't dealt with no other women outside those two groups. So I'm sorry, that's a lie. My thing is, like Sister Victoria said the same thing. Is that, look, like I said, you got sisters from ebony to ivory. You got that. And if for some reason you don't fool a sister, you can fool someone outside the community, at least be a woman of color, at least, and make sure she isn't a full, on the side of white supremacy. And make sure the black woman you with not a Stacey Dash either, because you can be with a black person and be with one of them. You don't want that, right? You please don't get one of them. But it's just not safe for a black man to do that. And I know some black dudes get mad about that, and they say all this and then the third about Caucasian females. But the thing is, we have too much of a documented history of things happening to you because of that. And yes, them terrorists been raping black women forever. They're still doing it to this day. Look at Holtzclaw. All them black women that he raped. And none of them Caucasian females came to their defense who are feminists. All the black women that were raped by this fool. Black women get raped all the time. And they may not report it. We as black men have never raped as many people as they have. Remember, right around the time slavery is going to end, they had 600,000 what they call mulattoes in America. How you think they got here? It wasn't no loving relationships. It was rapes. Black men ain't did no crap like that. That's why when I hear these feminists talking about rape culture with black men, I'm like, man, if you don't shut the hell up, we don't even do anything like that. The FBI numbers we can back up what you saying and according to stuff with us. So that's why I said, when these people tell you pull yourself up by your bootstraps and why you don't have businesses and why you don't have this, why you don't have that, go back and tell them, okay, when we had all that, why don't you make account for what you did to us to destroy our stuff? Running prominent black people out of town or out of the state, instituting Jim Crow. This is stuff that's happened to us. And then when you bring it to them, well, we didn't do that to you today. We had nothing to do with that. No, you didn't. You didn't do a thing. You didn't burn no communities down or anything. But you living in a system that was created by that. And you don't even want, this is the thing. Never in my life until this time, when you heard Malcolm X and even the Honorable Elijah Muhammad talk about you can't allow them to educate you. I see why now. I really see why. All the stuff they did to us, and then when you go to school, they teach you none of this. Hell, they don't even teach white people this either. They keep white people in the dark. It is amazing how they indoctrinate everybody in this country to think that they're the greatest thing on planet Earth. They misinform, miseducate, indoctrinate. That's what school is for here in America. And our kids not learning anything. It's sad. I know you don't know anything. And I'll say this again. When you don't know the difference between race, nationality, and ethnicity, it shows me the American school system failed you. They failed you because you went to get an education that's taxpayer funded. And yet it's nothing but a indoctrination for 12 years. If you don't teach your kids their history, if you don't do everything you can to not indoctrinate your children into a Caucasian supremacist system. Jane Elliott, she's a Caucasian person, said it on my show that if your child go through the school system, they're going to come out with white supremacy. And she said it. See, I understand the psychology of what these people do. Always these images of white. And it's not just the black people. It's Hispanics, it's Asians, all these other groups. They don't see themselves either on TV. They don't see themselves either as heroes too much. They don't see themselves as anything. This is why you got to purposely give your children a knowledge of self. My little girl that I have right now, she have dolls from Africa. Matter of fact, I was laughing at one of them. She said, "Daddy," she said, and I said, "What, baby?" "Nubian." And I said, "Nubian?" I said, "What do you mean by Nubian?" And she said, because the doll says Nubian princess, but she calls the doll Nubian. And it's so funny to hear her say Nubian. I get a kick out of hearing her say Nubian. You just don't know. Oh, I just love hearing the things that she say. But my daughter's dolls look like her. They have hair texture like her. Because I don't want her with self-esteem issues. My wife is even more adamant with that than I am. You know, some people talk about my wife or whatever. My wife, I think, is more militant than I can be at times. That's what you guys don't know. My wife is extremely militant. She's militant to the point sometimes I have to say, "Oh, okay, hold on. This I have to be the reason, the guy of reason right here." But she's extremely militant. She don't like when them folks be pulling that stuff they pull. Trust me, I'm the calm guy. Y'all really think I'm the one? No, she's the one. When y'all talk about how it used to be versus now, I said we both kind of came into the knowledge of a whole lot of things about this country, knowledge of self, knowledge of everything. We read a lot of the same books. You know, it's trust me. Well, you can't be. Let me tell you something. When it comes to me or any man with a woman, your woman that you with has an influence on you, and the man you with has an influence on them. And if you are trying to fight for the community and your spouse is trying to coon it up, it ain't gonna work. When you want to speak up and speak out, you got to have somebody with you that's saying the same things and very bold and outright, you know, tenacious with it. That's right. You will be compromised. That's why too, you know, like people don't understand, like when we talked about Nate Parker, when he did Birth of a Nation, and a lot of people even talked about his wife. Now everybody know his wife is white, right? But you got the exceptions with even white people. You do have the exceptions. I made the exceptions. If Nate Parker didn't have the support of his white wife, right? And if she didn't understand history and want that story out, she could have stopped him from doing that. It wasn't even his wife that stopped him. It was more so black feminists that tried to put a stop to him. And that was so despicable what happened, especially when you read the movie. It's not even one rape scene in the movie. It insinuates it, but it's not one rape scene. That's why I have an issue with them females. Well, you know, in this world, Sister Victoria is exception to every rule, and I'm not so. I've lived life long enough at 38 years to see you can't do everything in absolutes, because every time I've ever done an absolute, I've always been proven wrong every time. So I've learned to judge a man or woman by the actions and not their words. So if you can see a person who is not the way you describing them to be, then give them a chance. That's how I look at it. I didn't say you get them close to you where they can harm you or hurt you, but you gotta give people a chance, because I said this many times. There's a remnant of Caucasian people who are decent. I know that, and the rest of them, but due to what's in their minds. Because we got black people that I've seen darker than me trying to harm black people, hate their skin color, cooning all the time. So, you know, some people attack biracial people. Colin Kaepernick got a white mother, and he's speaking out more than the darkest skinned black NFL players could ever speak up right now. So we can't be looking at where a person come from and all this other stuff. What are you doing? It's not who your mama is sometimes. It's who you are as a person, or who your dad is, who you are as a person. Colin Kaepernick is a real brother. But they got some black people that dismiss him because his mother's white. In this country, if you got a black parent, you're black. Period. I don't care how you look. You can look racially ambiguous. Them folks gonna say you black. Look at Tiger Woods when he got arrested. All that Cablasion mess he was saying about himself. What they put on there? He black. They ain't put no Cablasion. He black. And that's the way it works in this system. And until some of y'all realize that, then we will be able to fight. So, and I get some people are, and I understand why you say certain things you say, because some of them are confused. Some of them may side with the other side. I get that. But then even those who side with the other side, they get that wake up call too. And they let them know you're not white. They can be light as all that chick that won the Miss Black University of Texas. They'll still call her N-word too. Light as she is. They'll call her that because she's not a white woman at the end of the day. And this is why you may see some people ask the question, why you see the biggest lighter skinned people, biracial people be the biggest pro-blacks? Because they literally got to fight for their blackness, or they had experiences with these folks where they want to fight against them more. Then you have people darker than me that want to be the biggest coons. Come on, let's just be real. Some of the biggest coons I've ever seen has been dark skinned people. And some of your most pro-blacks I've ever seen has been lighter skinned people. You would think it would be like the other way around, because lighter skinned people in this system, you know, could get a little benefit here and there. But no, it's like the ones who's got the most melanin want to coon it up. You know, I know some people come up with that. Well, if your dad's one thing, you're that. Look, in this country, it's about race, and on top of race, not about who your daddy is. If it's a black woman having a child with a white man, that child is black, period. That child's not white. One drop of black blood is black in this nation, period. We have dominant genes. They have recessive genes. Our stuff is always going to overtake them. And they know this. If you think that they would call Barack Obama white, look how many times they've called him monkey and all kind of other names they call Barack Obama. They know he has a white mother. Yeah, there you go, Sister Victoria. But then some black people are silly too. They're trying to look at a person and analyze where they're from. You know, some of them don't believe that black people can make real light-skinned people where they almost look biracial, or black people don't have blonde hair. I have a niece who has sandy blonde hair naturally. And my sister didn't have no baby with no Caucasian. Her child's father is black. And she has sandy blonde hair. And no, he wasn't biracial either. Met his parents, they dark skinned. If we are the father and mother of the earth, we created everything. We ought to know this. So don't let these people lie to you and say blonde hair come from them, blue eyes come from them, green eyes come from them. Nothing comes from them. They're only 6,000 years old. Nothing comes from you. Everything comes from the black man and black woman. The black woman is the only one to have the Eve gene. No other group has that. Black people have been here hundreds of thousands of years. Two black people can make a Caucasian, but two Caucasians can't make me. We can make any group. So that's why I'm trying. That's the thing I'm gonna keep preaching in my commentaries. If you're not gonna believe a pathological liar, then don't believe nothing they say about your condition, about anything you do, about your mindset. Nothing. Don't listen to it, because at that point, there's something wrong with you. We have never went to an all-white town and destroyed all what the white people built. We've never did that and ran them out of town. We didn't enslave a bunch of white people for 246 years. We didn't write no casual killing act about white people. We didn't put laws to state that if Caucasian women were raped, you don't go to jail over it because they were whores anyway. This is the laws that was put in relation to us as black people. We never did that. So like I said, in the same things they did back in, like the brothers say, 1898, they doing it in 2017. The exact same things. They just refined it a little bit here and there, but it's the same things. I don't know the talking about Obama's ancestors. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't think I know is that I'm 83% African. That's what I do know. I have a lot of lineage from Nigeria. That I do know. So can't speak to nobody else. Hey, it's a lot of reasons. Like I said, yeah, we could. I'm pretty sure you've seen the pictures of it. We could create them, but they can't create us. The thing is, we God's people. That's really what it is, and that's why they feel that we are their natural enemies and nobody else is. That's really what it is at the end of the day. As they're declining, we're rising. Some of you may not think we're rising, but we're rising every day. Why do you think they're trying to kill us off as much as possible? That's not going to stop it. Because every one you kill, 5 will replace them. Yes, I have done the African ancestry test. I haven't done that particular one, but I have done a DNA test. Oh, you say you from Nigeria? I plan on going to Nigeria. That's on my list. Like I said, it's definitely on my list. I have a couple of African nations that I do want to visit. Nigeria is definitely one of them. You know, I have to see it, but I want to go take a tour of different African nations, kind of like a movie style documentary. But I want to show the Africa that these folks won't show, the rich and affluent Africa, if I, you know what I'm saying? Because they want to tie Africa to, save the children, swole up stomachs, flies flying around, and show them, wait a minute, man, they got people in Africa living very well, and that's what I want to go show. I want to show that. They let us know that, wait a minute, you can go back if you want to, buy land and build that same kind of house, and probably for cheaper, if you get your business together. Well, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to keep you out too much longer. I don't know, I have a slight headache. But we posted news stories here, of course, and I'm about to post our news stories on the Advice Show Media channel. There we got 2 stories about Neanderthugs. Make sure you check out the stories about the Neanderthugs. If you're not subscribed to our Advice Show Media channel, make sure you subscribe to that channel. I think I've said that before. We are splitting our content between the Advice Show TV and Advice Show Media channels. And also, you know, for our fun channel, the comedy channel, the Ratchet Video Weekly channel, we're using that again. We're having fun. Because like I said, I need breaks sometime of this stress and hard points that we're dealing with in our community. I just want to laugh sometimes, because laughter does a heart good like medicine. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Catch it up on the replay if you have not seen it. Thank you for watching. See you next time.